welcome in the program Debate Aya with your host Tariq Khan. Since 9/11, Afghanistan is fighting with terrorism and suffering from political instability, security concerns, as well as ruthless violence by various extremist groups in Afghanistan. We will have a discussion and insight analysis on war in Afghanistan and where the uncertainties of peace in Afghanistan exist. Let me bring and introduce our guest in program. Ms. Amna Khan, you are the Director, Center for Middle East, Africa and Afghanistan at the Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad. Ma'am, you are welcome in program and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Tariq.
Thank you so much. After the incident 9/11, almost 2 decades of war on terrorism in Afghanistan by the US along with other logistical supporters to counter or fight Taliban as well as Al-Qaeda has not been prevented yet. How would you describe these 2 decades of war on terrorism in Afghanistan?
Well, look, I think everybody knows that unfortunately, this entire war, the US invasion of Afghanistan, has been a complete exercise in futility. If you look at the past 19 years, all you have seen is bloodshed, violence, and instability. And Afghanistan, I think, has become even more unstable because it is solely dependent on international aid. So therefore, the objectives or the aims that the Americans came in with, which, yes, as you rightly mentioned, was to fight terrorist elements like Al Qaeda, but it was also to, if you remember Bush's statement to liberate Afghanistan. So Afghanistan therefore has not been liberated, because as soon as the Taliban were overthrown, you have seen that the country has been at war with itself, constant bloodshed and fighting. And the fact that it has taken the international community and the Americans 19 years to realize what Pakistan has been saying from day one, that peace or relative stability can only be achieved through a negotiated settlement. And at the end of the day, as I said, after 19 years of wasting so much money, billions of dollars, innocent lives lost, be it the Afghans, be it American or international troops, or even regional countries, Pakistan has lost so many lives in this entire futile war. They've come to this conclusion that you need to negotiate with the Taliban. So I think the fact that the situation in Afghanistan is evident enough of an answer to show that the war has been an exercise in futility and futile. It's not achieved anything.
Recent peace talks and agreements that have been done between US and Taliban and Afghan government, as well as US and Afghan government, despite of these negotiations, the issue is becoming more complicated and challenging for the regional stability. What is your analysis? What do you think that where the uncertainties of peace in Afghanistan exist?
Look, you see, let me say this, that, while many have criticized the US Taliban agreement for being, very ambitious, but at the same time very minimum because it hasn't really, achieved much. The fact is, unfortunately, that this is the best option that the Afghans have, and it is far better than, being at war. So while there are many shortcomings of the agreement, the fact that the Americans realize that the only way to achieve some sort of stability is through a negotiated settlement should be welcomed. But it has been half-hearted, because you see, if you look at the contours of the agreement, it was that the Taliban would not target American forces. Fine, the Taliban have not been killing American forces, but they are killing innocent Afghan civilians as well as Afghan national security forces. So that's one of the biggest mistakes. Number two, there was no discussion in the agreement over a ceasefire. Also over the withdrawal of foreign forces, that it should be done in a responsible manner. And most importantly, whether the Taliban accept it or not, but Kabul was not included. And I think here the US-Taliban deal, the one of February 2020, for both being truly momentous for happening at all, yet severely modest for what it contains, which is right. But look, the fact is that that is the only ray of hope towards achieving a negotiated settlement in Afghanistan. While it was a welcome development, unfortunately, there were critical factors that were missing in the agreement that should have been focused on. For example, a ceasefire. That was not really discussed upon, and I think that was a critical aspect that should have been focused on. Similarly, attaining a sustained withdrawal from Afghanistan, this again was not focused on. And the most important, I think, aspect that was overlooked was the inclusion of Kabul. I think by excluding Kabul, that created a number of issues, and that's why you have seen, time and again, President Ghani creating hurdles in the way of peace. Anyway, despite all that, you now have the intra-Afghan talks, the highly anticipated intra-Afghan talks that are taking place in Doha. No matter how sporadic they are, the fact that these two warring parties, that is Kabul and the Taliban, are engaging with one another, I think is a highly welcome development. And I think it's an icebreaker at most, but I think it's the best progress you have seen towards achieving a negotiated settlement. Now, I think it is very important to understand and realize that, this is a war that has been going on for more than 19 years, and it continues to go on. It is a very complex phenomena. It is a very fragile process. Therefore, you need to give this process time. And again, I always say that the fact that both these two parties are engaging is in itself a breakthrough. And as long as both parties continue to engage, that is important. Now, unfortunately, there is a fear that the talks could collapse because the Taliban refused to reduce their violence, let alone enter into a ceasefire. And here I think the onus is on the Taliban. Look, the Taliban can no longer justify their violence because they're not fighting foreign forces. They are fighting Afghan national security forces. So at the end of the day, innocent Afghan lives are being lost. And I personally feel that the Taliban, since they've come such a long way in the peace process, they should, A, reduce violence and then enter into a ceasefire, not as a means of surrender or as a means of weakness, but rather to portray themselves as a very responsible stakeholder that has a place in the future Afghan polity of Afghanistan. And therefore, I think the Americans must put pressure on the Taliban to reduce their violence. At the same time, the Americans have to put pressure on the government, the Kabul administration, to not create unnecessary hurdles. We've seen time and again, President Ghani, he created a number of obstacles in the release of prisoners, then even with the constitution and establishment of the High Council for National Reconciliation. So time and again, we see that problems are also coming out of Kabul. And here I would like to mention that, we always talk about the biggest obstacles to the peace process in terms of external elements, external spoilers, but we don't talk about the biggest hurdle. And I think personally for me, that is the divisions within Afghanistan. And therefore focus needs to be laid on national and social reintegration and healing. And once the Afghans can learn to compromise with each other, I think then you'll see movement in the peace process. You've seen in Doha, both parties have not been able to engage and they've been, disagreeing on very minor issues. And this just shows you the deep divide that exists. And that's natural because, as I said in the beginning, both, like Afghanistan has been at war with itself and with each other. Therefore, you need to give this time, you need to give this process time. And international stakeholders, including regional stakeholders, including Pakistan, their role should be to push for the continuation of intra-Afghan talks. That is pivotal. As long as both sides are communicating, I think we're on the right track. But again, all sides have to play their role. And here I will say that now you have a new administration in America, and there are fears that Washington might, abruptly change its stance. But I think the Americans, because they signed an agreement with the Taliban, they have the biggest responsibility and they're the major stakeholders. They should ensure that there is no such thing as a hasty withdrawal. They should ensure that both sides deliver. They should let the Afghans deal with themselves, but they should know when to put pressure. Because, both these sides, as I said, the process is very fragile and there's a lot of mistrust between both these parties. And, lastly, I think it's just important that the entire region supports the process. It is pivotal that it does so.
Many scholars from Afghanistan say that there are so many groups are fighting with each other in Afghanistan other than Al-Qaeda and Taliban. What is your analysis? What do you think about this situation in Afghanistan?
Mm, mm. Look, I personally, yes. You see, ethnic divisions, ethnic fighting. We saw it in the Civil War as well in the 90s. That is an issue, but that's separate. When you talk about terrorist groups, let me just tell you that I think one of the biggest, I think, takeaways you can take from the agreement between the US and the Taliban was that the Taliban said they would not harbor or support any terrorist group. And I think that has been very evident in their fight against the Islamic State or the Islamic State of Khorasan province or the Daesh, as you'd like to call them in Afghanistan. The Taliban, we have seen since late 2014 and early 2015, have been, engaged in a very vicious and a very bloody battle against the Daesh. And this just shows you that the Taliban do not want to entertain any terrorist groups in Afghanistan, those that are contrary to the Taliban's beliefs. And if you remember, when Daesh initially reached out to the Taliban, the Taliban were very categorical when Mullah Mansour said that there is only room for one state and one flag in Afghanistan, and that is the Taliban. So the fact that if the Taliban, are fighting against the Daesh, this in itself should be one of the biggest, I think, dividends of having a peace agreement. Because right now, what is happening in Afghanistan? It's a battleground, it's a free-for-all, where the Taliban is fighting with the Afghan National Security Forces and vice versa. And at the same time, then you have militant groups and terrorist groups, particularly like the ISKP, who is taking advantage of the fighting. Remember, the first ceasefire that we saw between the Afghan government and the Taliban was in June 2018, if I'm not mistaken. No violence took place from either side. The only party or the only group that committed violence was the Daesh. So this just shows you that the biggest beneficiary of the ongoing violence is the Daesh, and it is a major spoiler. Therefore, in order to deny room to any militant or terrorist groups in Afghanistan, you need to have the Taliban and the Afghan government on one side. Because the longer this conflict continues, you're going to create greater vacuum and space for other terrorist networks to operate. And we've seen elements of the TTP as well, because we've seen a lot of attacks on our, border with Afghanistan. Therefore, I think that is why regional countries also realize that one of the biggest ways in order to prevent Afghanistan from being a safe haven for any terrorist group is to have some sort of stability. And that means having an agreement between these two parties, that is the Afghan government and the Taliban.
Where do the regional players as well as stakeholders like Russia, India and Iran and more significantly Pakistan stand in Afghanistan, and what is their role in
So let me
peace
just begin
in
by
Afghanistan?
saying that I think this is the first time in the history of this region where all, Afghanistan's immediate neighbors, by immediate I mean those that share a border with Afghanistan, are on the same page, where they have a common regional vision for Afghanistan. And for me, this entails, as I said, a regional vision, peace in Afghanistan, recognition of the Taliban as a major stakeholder, and a consolidated fight against the Daesh or the Islamic State of Khorasan province. Countries like Russia and Iran that were completely at odds with Pakistan in their view against in Afghanistan during the 80s are all on the same page now. And we have seen this time and again, whether it's been in the Moscow talks or whether, the intelligence heads of China, Russia, Pakistan, and Iran all met, including the Central Asians. So I think the regional countries have realized that, they can no longer depend on the West to bail them out, and that it is time for the regional countries to take ownership and play a bigger role. And as I just mentioned, we've seen this from Russia. I mean, I find it interesting that a country like Russia that invaded Afghanistan, being the former USSR, was able to bring all the different Afghan factions, including the Taliban, on the same table in the Moscow talks. Similarly, look at China. China has assumed a very big role in Afghanistan. Usually China, who doesn't like to exert influence outside its region of influence, has done so in Afghanistan, where for the first time you see China playing the role of a facilitator and a mediator in Afghanistan, where it has really pushed the Afghan government and the Taliban to engage, but also has played a role in bringing Pakistan and Afghanistan onto the negotiating table because of the irritants they've had. And of course, this all has to do with the peace process and the extension of the possible extension of the BRI and CPEC to Afghanistan. Similarly, the Central Asians have been playing a very pivotal role. Iran as well has been reaching out to the Taliban to engage with them. And Pakistan's, I think, role is very obvious. While in the beginning, yes, I agree that Pakistan's role may have been vague and ambiguous to a certain extent. I think now it's very clear that this is no longer a cliche. Pakistan truly does need a stable and peaceful Afghanistan. And I think this is more than obvious for Pakistanis who've been suffering as a consequence of the instability in Afghanistan. I don't think I need to remind anyone of the consequences that we have faced in terms of terrorism. And also because of economic dividends that could come out. We need a stable and peaceful Afghanistan for the extension of CPEC and for economic connectivity and infrastructural developments. So this is very important. And here again, I would say that, Pakistan from day one has always said, and Pakistan has been blamed for this, a number of times, but it is just sad that it's taken the international community so long to realize that peace can only be achieved through direct negotiations and a peaceful, a negotiated settlement. And Pakistan, as we're all aware, its role has been very transparent. It has played a major role in pushing the Afghan Taliban to engage not only with the US, but to also engage with Kabul. And Pakistan has been time and again, even now, telling the Taliban that they need to ensure a reduction in violence, because that is a major, major factor that will help improve, the chances of peace. So Pakistan, and another important factor that I'd like to raise here is that while in the beginning, Pakistan used to often limit its relationship to, say, the Pashtuns in Afghanistan, as you see now, Pakistan and our foreign minister, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, has been very clear where he says Pakistan does not have any favorites. For Pakistan, whether you're a Tajik, you're a Uzbek, you're a Pashtun, you're a Hazara, you are all Afghans to us. And therefore, any political dispensation that happens in Afghanistan is acceptable to Pakistan. We do not want to meddle in their affairs. We have no interest in doing so. But yes, we want to have a friendly and a stable Western neighbor. And here I would like to mention, when I talk about friendly, a country that will not entertain other countries' activities that are detrimental to Pakistan. And similarly, it will not entertain any elements from our side that are trying to harm other countries. Now, I know this is wishful thinking and it's very difficult in these times, but I think there is this is an important time, and I think this is an opportunity for the Afghans to finally come together and put an end to the constant bloodshed that this country has been facing. I know it's difficult. It's a very difficult process, but look, at the end of the day, regional countries can only do so much. Pakistan, or for that matter, the Americans or Russia or China, cannot deliver peace. Peace can only be achieved and attained if the Afghans want it. And for this, both sides, meaning the Taliban and Kabul, will then therefore have to compromise on certain points, and they will have to come to a reaching point. And again, this is something that the Afghans will have to do. The Afghans have to take this ownership. And lastly, I will say that while Pakistan fully supports the peace process, I think it is important that Pakistan and Afghanistan's relationship expands and is not limited just to security or the peace process. Because if you see time and again, the peace process has dominated and dictated the Pak-Afghan relationship. If you have any positive developments in the peace process, you have good comments coming out from Afghanistan. But the minute you see some sort of a negative trajectory in the peace process, Afghanistan starts blaming Pakistan for all the ills in Afghanistan. And I think this is not only naive, I think it's counterproductive for both these countries. Both these countries are so connected, whether it's geography, whether it's ethnicity, whether it's religion, and they have so much to benefit from each other. Therefore, they need to, I think, widen the contours of their relationship. They need to focus on trade. They need to focus on the border management. They need to focus on regional connectivity. So whatever happens on the peace process, while Pakistan supports it, the Afghans should take ownership. And instead of blaming Pakistan, they should focus on other areas. And I think we have a mechanism in place, which is the Afghan Pakistan Action Plan for Peace and Solidarity, which is a very vast platform where there are several areas, whether it's border management, whether it's trade, whether it's economics, whether it's refugees. So they can focus on other areas, and therefore I think they need to move away from the security lens. And it is important to realize that whether the Americans withdraw or they don't, at the end of the day, the Afghans will have to deal with the Pakistanis, and the Pakistanis will have to deal with the Afghans, because we're so interconnected. Therefore, it is important that they have a workable relationship. And, one just hopes that Pakistan will, of course, continue to support the peace process, but that the Afghans need to realize this. And here I would like to say that during the past, I think, since last year we had President Ghani who came to Pakistan. This year we had Dr. Abdullah. This has then been followed by other visits as well, which is a welcome development, because Pakistan wants to make it clear that we do not have any favorites. All Afghans are equal to us, and we respect whatever dispensation the Afghans want for themselves.
The US role in Afghanistan is very important. Every administration and president has own policies toward Afghanistan. What do you think? What would be the US foreign policy towards Afghanistan under the administration led by newly elected President Joe Biden? What is your analysis?
I think that's a very difficult question, because it's a very nascent development. You've just had the elections and the results come out. I think there's going to be, for sure, Biden is going to have a review policy of what has been achieved so far after the signing of the agreement. I don't think that there's going to be a complete collapse of the deal, as we saw with the US and Iran nuclear deal. I don't think we're going to see anything of that sort. But yes, I think that there's going to be definitely a review process by the new Biden administration. And I think one factor that may hinder or jeopardize chances of peace is if the Taliban continue to increase their violence. I think this is something that maybe the Biden administration will not be able to tolerate, because they have voiced concerns that the Taliban have been given too much leverage in this agreement. And therefore I feel that maybe the expectations or the level of deliverance from the Taliban might be more. And this is probably what the new administration will probably try to focus on. But at the same time, I think it would be naive if the new administration completely lets go of this agreement, because, as I said in the beginning, it might not have achieved great grounds, but the fact that the Taliban have signaled their willingness to move towards a negotiated settlement, and where they want to have some sort, they say that they don't want a monopoly of power anymore, and that they don't want to fight any particular country, that even the Americans are not their enemies, and that while they would want the Americans to exit Afghanistan, at the same time they are open to having some sort of American presence, be it in the form of counterterrorism efforts or reconstruction or development. So I think most probably, as I said, there's going to be a review of what has been achieved and what can be achieved. And I think maybe pressure might be put more on the Taliban to deliver, as I said, on their commitments towards the agreement, which will be a reduction in violence.
Thank you so much for your precious and valuable analysis on the topic, and we have learned so much facts and realities from you. Thank you so much again for joining us.